Hello, story lovers. Tonight we're diving into a tale of passion, secrets, and choices that could change everything. Hearts will be broken, love will be tested, and every twist will leave you on the edge of your seat. Comment below where you're watching from, and if this story moves you, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who loves a powerful love story, and tap the bell so you never miss the next thrilling chapter. Ready? Let's begin. Asterisk, the champagne glass trembled in Natasha Rivers' grip as Manhattan's elite circulated through her gallery like predators scenting blood. At 24, she had built an empire of carefully curated exhibitions. Each one a fortress protecting the emotions she refused to feel. The white walls reflected the harsh gallery lights, casting everything in stark relief, just like the barriers she had constructed around her heart. "You're doing that thing again?" Diana whispered, materializing beside her with fresh champagne. Her best friend's warm eyes held concern as she studied Natasha's marble-perfect composure. "The thing where you watch everyone like they're about to steal something precious." Natasha accepted the glass, her fingers automatically finding the thin silver chain at her throat. A nervous habit that had started 5 years ago when her mother's heart stopped beating, when promises turned to ash and trust became a luxury she could no longer afford. "I'm ensuring quality control," Natasha replied, but her voice carried the weight of practiced lies. The truth burned in her chest like swallowed fire. After watching her mother's soul shatter from a man's beautiful deceptions, Natasha had sworn an oath written in her own blood. Never again would she allow anyone close enough to destroy her. Art became her lover, paintings her confidants, sculptures her only safe harbor for the emotions that threatened to drown her.
Ow.
"Miss Rivers?" A gallery assistant approached with the nervous energy of someone delivering bad news. "There's a gentleman asking specifically about the centerpiece. Says he must speak with you personally about Whispers of the Heart." The champagne turned to ice in Natasha's veins. The painting that had called to her soul from an obscure auction house depicting a woman whose face held the perfect marriage of hope and devastation. Something about those painted eyes had felt like looking into a mirror of her deepest secrets. "Tell him I'll be right there," she said, draining her glass for courage she didn't possess. When Natasha approached the centerpiece, she found him. A man who stood before the painting with an intensity that made the air crackle with electricity. Tall and commanding, with dark hair that looked finger-raked and a suit that whispered of serious money, but his eyes stopped her breath. Deep green pools that held secrets and pain in equal measure. "Must be Natasha Rivers," he said without turning, his voice carrying an accent that made her pulse quicken. "I can see why this painting called to you, and you are," she asked, moving beside him while maintaining professional distance that felt like armor. He turned then, and the full force of his attention hit her like a physical blow. Leonardo Castellano had been searching for this painting for a very long time. Their handshake lasted a heartbeat too long, electricity jumping between their skin like lightning, seeking ground. Natasha pulled away quickly, her heart hammering against her ribs. "What's your interest in the piece?" she asked, falling back on professional training to maintain composure. Leonardo's smile held sadness that seemed to echo in her bones. "Money isn't the issue. This painting has a connection to someone I lost." His eyes returned to the canvas. "Tell me, when you first saw this piece, what did you feel?" The question was so personal, so intimate, that her carefully constructed walls trembled. She never discussed emotional connections with clients. It was too revealing, too dangerous. "I felt ... double quotes," she began, then stopped, shaking her head. "Don't typically discuss personal reactions with potential buyers." "I'm not just any buyer," he said quietly, those devastating green eyes piercing her defenses. "And this isn't just any painting. The woman in this portrait looks remarkably like you." Natasha's blood turned to winter in her veins. She had noticed the resemblance herself, the same dark hair, delicate bone structure, even the same shade of blue eyes. But she had dismissed it as coincidence.
Ow.
"Many people see resemblances in classical art," she said carefully. "This painting was completed 25 years ago," Leonardo interrupted gently, "by an artist named Carmen Rivers." The champagne glass exploded against the gallery floor like her world shattering. Several patrons turned, but Natasha barely noticed. Carmen Rivers had been her mother's name. That's impossible, she whispered, studying the painting with new eyes. The signature in the corner, previously illegible, now seemed to form achingly. Familiar letters. Your mother was many things, Leonardo said softly, pulling out his phone. The photograph on the screen showed her mother, young and radiant, standing in what looked like an artist's studio. Natasha's knees nearly buckled. Everything she thought she knew about her life was crumbling like ancient paper. Who are you? Really? She demanded, her voice breaking. Leonardo's eyes held a storm of emotions as he stepped closer. The man who loved your mother. I think I might be your father. The world tilted on its axis. Natasha gripped the wall for support as the gallery's ambient noise faded to white static. The faces of wealthy patrons blurred into impressionist smears of color, while her mind tried to process the impossibility of Leonardo's words. That's not possible, she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. The photograph on his phone showed her mother with paint-stained fingers, eyes bright with artistic passion Natasha had never seen. My mother was a high school teacher. She never mentioned art, never even drew a grocery list without apologizing for her handwriting. Leonardo pocketed his phone, his movements careful as if approaching a wounded animal. Carmen was protecting you from me. From a world that destroyed her dreams the first time. Stop. Natasha's professional mask cracked like ice over deep water.
God.
Just stop talking. You walk into my gallery, claim to know my dead mother, suggest you might be my father, and expect me to believe fairy tales? But even as she spoke, pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Her mother's mysterious sadness during Natasha's childhood. The way Carmen would stare at paintings in museums with longing that seemed to bleed from her pores. The sudden moves every few years, always leaving behind anything that might connect them to the past. I have proof, Leonardo said gently. Documents, letters she wrote but never sent. DNA can confirm what your heart already knows. My heart knows nothing, Natasha snapped, but her fingers found that silver chain again, twisting it until it bit into her skin. My mother raised me alone. She told me my father was a mistake, she refused to repeat. Pain flashed across Leonardo's features like lightning illuminating a storm-dark sky. Carmen was 19 when we met. I was 25, heir to a fortune built on art acquisition and real estate. She was the most talented artist I'd ever seen, and I was young enough to believe love could conquer the expectations of old money. Families, spare me the tragic romance, Natasha said, but her voice wavered. My family had different plans. They offered Carmen money to disappear, a significant sum. Leonardo's jaw clenched. She took it, vanished one night, leaving only a note saying she never wanted to see me again. The gallery spun around Natasha like a carousel of lies. So you're telling me my mother was bought off? That she sold her love for money? I thought so for 24 years, Leonardo admitted, his voice raw with old wounds. Until I hired a private investigator 6 months ago, I discovered she was pregnant when she left. She used the money to start fresh, to protect you from a family that would have destroyed both your lives. Diana appeared at Natasha's elbow, concern radiating from her like heat. Nat, you look like you've seen a ghost. Maybe I have, Natasha whispered, staring at the painting of her mother. The woman in the portrait gazed out a window with eyes that held the weight of impossible choices. Diana, meet Leonardo Castellano. He claims to be my father. Diana's sharp intake of breath cut through the gallery's ambient chatter. I'm calling security. No. The word escaped Natasha's lips before her rational mind could stop it. Something in Leonardo's eyes, the way they held the same shade of pain she saw in her own mirror, made her hesitate. Give us privacy, please, Diana. Hesitated, then nodded. I'll clear this section. 5 minutes. When they were alone, Leonardo stepped closer. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar, and something darker. I know this is overwhelming, but I've been searching for you since I learned the truth. Carmen died believing I never tried to find her, never knew about you. She died believing you abandoned her, Natasha corrected, her voice sharp as broken glass. She spent 5 years dying from cancer, working 3 jobs to pay for treatment, never once mentioning that somewhere out there was a man with enough money to save her life. Leonardo's face went ashen. Cancer? I didn't know. If I had known, you would have what? Swooped in to play hero? Natasha laughed bitterly. She was protecting me from exactly this, from men who make promises they can't keep, from hope that kills more surely than any disease. I kept every promise I made to your mother, Leonardo, said quietly, except the one that mattered most. I promised I'd fight for her, fight for us. Instead, I let my family's threats and her disappearance convince me she had chosen money over love. Natasha studied his face, searching for deception, but finding only raw honesty that terrified her. What do you want from me? To know you, he said simply. To understand the woman my daughter became. And maybe, if you'll let me, to try to earn the right to call myself your father? The words hit her like a physical blow. She had spent her entire life building walls against this exact moment, against the vulnerability of needing someone who might disappear. I don't need a father, she said, but the words felt hollow. I've done fine on my own. Yes, you have. Leonardo's smile held pride that made her chest ache. You've built something remarkable here. Carmen would be so proud. For a moment, just a heartbeat, Natasha allowed herself to imagine it, and a father who looked at her work with pride instead of disappointment. Someone who understood the artistic soul she had inherited but never acknowledged. Then reality crashed back like cold water. How do I know this isn't some elaborate con? That you're not after something? Leonardo reached into his jacket, and Natasha tensed, but he only pulled out an envelope yellowed with age. This is the last letter your mother wrote to me. She never sent it. He held it out with trembling fingers. It's dated 3 days before you were born. Natasha stared at the envelope, as if it might explode. Her mother's handwriting, the careful script she remembered from birthday cards and school notes. I can't, she whispered. Then don't. Not yet. Leonardo carefully tucked the letter away. But know that I'm not going anywhere. Not again. Whatever you need, whatever time you need, I'll wait. The promise hung between them like a bridge she was terrified to cross. Mr. Castellano, a voice interrupted them. A woman approached, elegant and cold as winter marble. Your car is waiting. Leonardo's expression shifted, becoming guarded. Natasha, this is Victoria Castellano, my wife. World tilted again. Wife. Of course there was a wife. Rich men like Leonardo always had perfect wives, with perfect lives that left no room for inconvenient daughters. From complicated pasts, Victoria's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. So you're the girl causing such a fuss? How charming. Natasha felt something inside her, hardened back into familiar armor. I'm not causing anything. I'm simply living my life. Of course you are, dear. Victoria's tone dripped condescension. Though I do hope you understand that Leonardo's enthusiasm for reconnecting doesn't necessarily reflect the family's position. On these matters, the words landed like slaps. Natasha lifted her chin, meeting Victoria's cold gaze with fire. I understand perfectly. Your family bought my mother off once. I assure you I'm not for sale. Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something calculating and dangerous. Everyone has a price, Miss Rivers. The question is whether we want to pay it. Victoria, enough. Leonardo's voice carried warning, but the damage was done. Natasha looked between them, seeing the power dynamics play out like a familiar dance. The rich husband, the controlling wife, the inconvenient truth that threatened their perfect world. Thank you for the clarification, Natasha said, her voice steady as stone. It saves us all a great deal of time and false hope. She turned to walk away, but Leonardo caught her wrist. Natasha, please. She doesn't speak for me, doesn't she? Natasha pulled free, her heart hardening back into the safe shell she knew how to wear. Goodbye, Mr. Castellano. Enjoy the rest of the exhibition. But as she walked away, she heard Victoria's voice, low and poisonous. If you contact her again, I'll destroy that little gallery of hers. And then I'll destroy her. 3 weeks passed like a fever dream. Natasha threw herself into work with the desperate intensity of someone trying to outrun her own thoughts. Everywhere she looked, she saw her mother's face in the paintings, heard Leonardo's voice in the silence between heartbeats. The gallery had become her sanctuary and her prison. You're going to wear a hole in that floor, Diana observed from her perch on the reception desk, watching Natasha pace between exhibitions. Also, you haven't slept in days. I can tell because you're wearing yesterday's mascara and today's desperation. I'm fine, Natasha lied, stopping to adjust a frame that was already perfectly straight. Right, and I'm the Queen of England. Diana slid off the desk, blocking Natasha's path. Talk to me. What's eating you alive? Before Natasha could deflect with another lie, the gallery's front door chimed. Both women turned, and Natasha's breath caught. Leonardo stood in the doorway like a storm given human form. His suit wrinkled, his perfect composure cracked around the edges. We need to talk, he said without preamble. I think we've said enough, Natasha replied, but her voice lacked conviction. Victoria's gone to London for a month. This is our chance. Diana looked between them like a tennis match. We'll just be in the back room, cataloging very loudly. She disappeared, leaving them alone in the charged space between wanting and fear. Chance for what? Natasha asked, hating how her pulse quickened at his proximity. To know each other without her poison in the air? Leonardo stepped closer, and she caught that scent again. Cedar and danger. I've been thinking about what you said, about promises and hope that kills. Have you come to agree with me? No, his green eyes held fire. I've come to prove you wrong, pulled out the yellowed envelope again, holding it between them. Like a peace offering, or a weapon, your mother's last letter. She wrote it when she was in labor with you. Natasha stared at the envelope as if it were a snake that might strike. I told you I can't. Then let me read it to you. Leonardo's fingers trembled as he opened the envelope with infinite care. Dear Leo, he began, his voice rough with emotion. If you're reading this, it means I found the courage to send what I should have given you months ago. Stop, Natasha, whispered, but she didn't move away. I never wanted your money. I took it because your mother threatened to destroy you if you tried to find me. She showed me photographs, Leonardo, what she was capable of, what she did to the last girl who got too close to her precious son. The gallery fell silent except for the sound of Natasha's sharp intake of breath. There's more, Leonardo said gently. She was protecting both of us, and she was protecting you. He looked up from the letter, meeting Natasha's eyes. I didn't know I was going to have. Natasha felt her walls cracking like ice over deep water. Your mother is still alive, still threatening people. Yes, Leonardo admitted. But I'm not the naive 25-year-old who let her control my life. I won't let her destroy us again. The word escaped before Natasha could stop it. You're my daughter. It makes us family, whether Victoria approves or not. Something inside Natasha's chest broke open, flooding her with emotions she had kept locked away for years. Hope. Longing. The desperate need for connection. She had denied herself since her mother's death. I don't know how to do this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Neither do I. Leonardo's smile was sad and beautiful. But I'd like to learn, if you'll let me. For a moment, just a heartbeat, Natasha allowed herself to imagine. Sunday dinners, someone to call when the world felt too heavy, a father who might actually stay. What would you want from me? She asked. Nothing you're not willing to give. Time, maybe. Conversation. The chance to know the woman my daughter became. And when your wife comes back from London, Leonardo's jaw tightened. Victoria and I have been married in name only for years. She has her interests, I have mine. But she won't touch you again, I promise. There was that word again. Promise. The thing her mother had taught her never to trust. But looking into Leonardo's eyes, seeing the same shade of pain and hope she carried in her own heart, Natasha felt something shift. A door she had kept locked for years creaking open.
Ow.
One dinner, she said finally.
Ow. Somewhere public.
And if you turn out to be a serial killer, I'm calling the police. Leonardo's laugh was rich and warm, filling the empty spaces in her chest. Deal. That night, they sat in a small Italian restaurant in Soho, and Natasha learned that her father loved art the way she did, with desperate intensity. That he had her mother's sense of humor and her own stubborn streak. That he saw the world in colors and textures and stories waiting to be told. Why art? She asked over wine that tasted like liquid courage. Because it's the only truth that matters, Leonardo replied. Everything else can lie. People, words, even memories. But art tells the truth about who we are when we think no one is watching. The words hit her like lightning. It was exactly what she had always felt but never been able to articulate. Is that why you kept searching for the painting? I kept searching because it was the only piece of your mother I had left. The only proof that what we had was real. His eyes found hers across the small table. I never imagined it would lead me to you. They talked until the restaurant closed around them, sharing stories and silences that felt like coming home. For the first time in years, Natasha felt the possibility of belonging somewhere. As they walked back toward her apartment, Leonardo's phone buzzed. His face went pale as he read the message. What is it? Victoria's coming back early. Tomorrow. He looked up, eyes dark with worry. Someone told her about dinner. Ice settled in Natasha's stomach. What does that mean? It means she's going to make good on her threat. She'll come for the gallery, for your reputation, for everything you've built. Natasha felt her old walls slamming back into place. Then we stop this now. Before she destroys my life the way she destroyed my mother's. No. Leonardo caught her hand, his grip fierce. I won't let her win again. Not this time. You can't stop her. She has money, power, connections. I have a small gallery and dreams. That don't pay the bills? You have me, Leonardo said quietly, and I have resources she doesn't know about. The promise in his voice made her chest ache with dangerous hope. What kind of resources? Leonardo's smile was sharp enough to cut. Glass. The kind that could destroy her before she destroys us. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Natasha looked into his eyes, seeing determination and something darker. Something that reminded her that he was, after all, a Castellano. Old money didn't stay powerful by playing fair. What are you asking me to do? Help me bring down my wife before she brings down everything we're building. The words hung between them like a bridge over an abyss. Once crossed, there would be no going back to the safe, lonely world she had built for herself. If we do this, Natasha said slowly, what happens to us afterward, when the war's over? Leonardo's eyes held storms and promises. Then we find out what it means to be a family. But as they shook hands on their dangerous alliance, neither of them saw the figure watching from across the street. Victoria Castellano had returned early for a reason, and she was already 3 moves ahead. The gallery felt different the next morning, charged with the electricity of impending storm. Natasha arrived early, her mind racing with plans and possibilities from her conversation with Leonardo. For the first time in years, she felt like she was part of something larger than her carefully controlled world. Diana was already there, arranging fresh flowers with nervous energy. You look different, Diana observed, studying Natasha's face. Less like you're carrying the weight of Manhattan on your shoulders. Maybe I'm learning to share the load, Natasha replied, unable to suppress a smile. But the warmth evaporated when she saw the morning's newspaper folded on her desk. The headline made her blood turn to ice. Art World Scandal. Rising Curator's Secret Connection to Stolen Masterpiece. Her hands shook as she read the article, each word a dagger twist in her chest. Anonymous sources claimed that whispers of the heart was actually a stolen piece, missing from a private European collection for 25 years. The article suggested that Natasha Rivers had knowingly acquired and displayed stolen art, calling her professional integrity into question. This is impossible, she whispered. But even as she spoke, doubt crept in like poison. The painting that had called to her soul, that had led her to Leonardo, was being used to destroy everything she had built. Her phone buzzed. Leonardo's name. On the screen, did you see? His voice was tight with controlled fury. I'm reading it now. How did they know? The painting's provenance was clean. I checked everything, Victoria. She has contacts everywhere, people who owe her favors. She's creating evidence where none existed. Natasha sank into her chair as the implications hit her. My reputation is finished. The gallery, my career, everything. Not if we move fast. I have proof that the painting was legitimately purchased by your mother from the original artist. Bank records, receipts, everything. Hope flickered in her chest. Where? My office. Safe deposit box. Can you meet me there in an hour, Leonardo? She hesitated, old fears clawing at her throat. What if this is bigger than we thought? If she's willing to destroy both of us, then we destroy her first. His voice carried a steel that both thrilled and terrified her. Trust me, Natasha, we're so close. An hour later, Natasha stood in the marble lobby of Castellano Enterprises, feeling like she was entering enemy territory. The building screamed, old money and older secrets. All glass and steel reaching toward a sky that felt too far away. Leonardo met her at the elevator, his face grim. The documents are in my private office. Once we have them, we take everything to the Times. Full exposure of Victoria's methods. The elevator climb felt endless, each floor marking another step away from the safe world she had known. When the doors opened on the top floor, Natasha's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Manhattan spread out like a glittering promise, art covering every wall and a display of wealth and power that made her gallery seem like a child's playroom. Impressive prison, she murmured. Every golden cage looks beautiful from the outside. Leonardo led her toward a massive desk where a safe stood open. Here, bank records from 1999, purchase agreement, everything that proves your mother bought. That painting legally? Natasha reached for the documents, but Leonardo's hand covered hers. Before we do this, there's something else you need to know. Cold dread settled in her stomach. What? Victoria isn't just my wife. She's my business partner. Half of everything I own, everything I've built, is legally hers. If we expose her methods, I lose everything too. The words hit her like a physical blow. You're asking me to let you sacrifice your entire life for someone you've known for 3 weeks? I'm asking you to let me choose my daughter over money. His green eyes held fierce determination. I failed your mother. I won't fail you. But something in his tone made her step back, old instincts screaming warnings. Why are you really doing this? What do you gain from destroying your wife? Leonardo's expression shifted, became guarded. What do you mean? Mean that men like you don't burn down empires for sentimental reasons? What's really in this for? For a long moment, he didn't answer.
How?
When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Victoria has been stealing from me for years, siphoning money, selling pieces from my private collection. I've been building a case against her, and I'm what? Your cover story? You're my daughter. That part is real. But this is about revenge, not family. Leonardo moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the enclosed space. Can't it be both? I want Victoria destroyed for what she did to your mother, what she's trying to do to you, but I also want my life back. Natasha felt something cracking inside her chest, the fragile trust she had allowed herself to build. What happens to me when this is over, when you have everything you want? You'll be part of it, the business, the art collection, everything. Yes. What, your grateful daughter who helped you get revenge on your wife? As my heir? My family? The word hung between them like a promise or a threat. Natasha studied his face, seeing the truth he was trying to hide. Leonardo Castellano was a man accustomed to getting what he wanted, and right now, he wanted Victoria gone more than he wanted a relationship with the daughter he had just discovered. But before she could voice her doubts, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Victoria's voice carried through the closed door, sharp and commanding. Is she in there with you? Natasha's heart hammered against her ribs. Is there another way out? The private elevator? Leonardo said, moving toward his desk. But we need those documents first. The office door opened. Victoria stood framed in the doorway like an avenging angel in designer clothes, her smile sharp. Enough to cut glass. Behind her stood 2 security guards and a man in an expensive suit who screamed lawyer. Well, well, Victoria purred. The little reunion I've been expecting, Victoria. Leonardo's voice was steady, but Natasha could see tension coiling in his shoulders. You're supposed to be in London. Change of plans, darling. Amazing what you discover when you actually pay attention to your husband's activities. Her cold gaze shifted to Natasha, though I must say, you've exceeded my expectations, Miss Rivers. I didn't think you'd be quite so thoroughly fooled. Settled in Natasha's veins. What are you talking about? Victoria's laugh was like breaking glass. Oh, my dear girl, did you really think this was about family? About some touching reunion with the father you never knew? Victoria, stop, Leonardo warned. But there was something in his tone that made Natasha's blood run cold. Stop what? Stop telling her the truth? Victoria pulled out her phone, showing them a series of photographs. Pictures of Leonardo watching the gallery from across the street, weeks before the exhibition. Pictures of him talking to art dealers, asking questions about Natasha's acquisitions. He's been tracking you for months, ever since he learned about your mother's death and the inheritance she left you. What inheritance? Natasha whispered, but she was already starting to understand. The paintings, darling. All those beautiful pieces your mother left you, the ones you thought were worthless amateur work. Turns out Carmen Rivers was far more talented than anyone knew. Her paintings are worth millions.
Yes.
The world tilted on its axis. Natasha looked at Leonardo, seeing confirmation in his guilty expression. The gallery, she said slowly. My reputation, my career. You needed me to trust you, so I'd give you access to everything. Natasha, it's not what you think, isn't it? Victoria's voice dripped false sympathy. Poor little orphan girl, so desperate for family that she'd believe any story, even one about a man who abandoned her mother and spent 24 years not caring whether his daughter existed. I did care, Leonardo said quietly, but the words sounded hollow. You cared about profit, Natasha corrected, her voice steady. Despite the devastation in her chest, the DNA test you wanted? That wasn't about proving paternity. That was about proving legal claim to my mother's estate. Victoria clapped slowly. It's very good. Though it took you rather long to catch on. Natasha felt her heart hardening back into the familiar armor she had worn for years. But this time, the walls she built would be high enough to keep out everything. Love, hope, the desperate need for connection that had nearly destroyed her. The newspaper article this morning, she said. That was you too, but not to destroy me. To force me to turn to Leonardo for help. To make me desperate enough to trust him with everything. Insurance policy, Victoria confirmed. Though I must admit I'm impressed with how thoroughly you played your part, darling. The wounded daughter act was particularly convincing. Leonardo stepped forward, his face pale. Natasha, please, let me explain. Explain what? How you found the perfect mark. How you used my mother's memory to manipulate me. Her voice was steady as winter stone. How you made me believe for just a moment that I wasn't alone in the world. Some of it was real, he said desperately. The connection we felt, the conversations, I never expected that. But not real enough to matter more than money? Paintings are worth $30 million, Natasha. We could share them. Be a real family. The offer hung in the air like bait on a hook. For a heartbeat, just a heartbeat, she was tempted. $30 million. Father who, despite everything, seemed to genuinely care about her. The chance to belong somewhere. Then she remembered her mother's face, the way Carmen had died alone and afraid, never trusting anyone enough to let them close. My mother was right about everything, Natasha said quietly, including you. She walked toward the elevator, each step feeling like a small death. Where are you going? Leonardo called after her. To burn it all down, she replied without turning around. The paintings, the gallery, everything. If I can't have it without being destroyed by vultures, then no one can have it. But as the elevator doors closed, she heard Victoria's voice. One last time, cold and satisfied. She won't do it. She's too much like her mother. All bark, no bite. As the elevator descended toward the ground floor, carrying her away from the wreckage of her dreams, Natasha Rivers smiled for the first time. In days, Victoria Castellano was about to learn exactly how wrong she could be. Asterisk. The gallery felt like a mausoleum as Natasha walked through it one last time. Dawn light filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the artwork that had been her whole world for so long. Each piece told a story, held memories of late nights and early mornings, of dreams carefully crafted and lovingly tended. Now it would all burn. Diana found her standing before whispers of the heart, the painting, that had started everything and would end it all. The insurance investigator called, Diana said quietly. They're coming this afternoon to seize the painting pending their investigation. Also, 3 major collectors have already canceled their contracts. Word travels fast in our world. Natasha nodded, unsurprised. Victoria Castellano's web of influence stretched far and wide, and she wielded it with surgical precision. Good. Let them take it all. Nat, there has to be another way. You've worked too hard to just give up. I'm not giving up. Natasha's voice carried a steel that made Diana step back. I'm choosing my terms of surrender. The box sitting on her desk contained everything. Her mother's paintings, the ones Victoria had said, were worth millions. 23 pieces of art that Carmen Rivers had created in secret, each one a window into the woman's soul. Landscapes that ached with longing. Portraits that captured pain so beautifully it took your breath away. Abstracts that seemed to bleed. Color and emotion, they were magnificent. And they were going to disappear forever. You can't be serious about destroying them, Diana whispered, recognizing the lighter fluid and matches beside the box. Watch me. But before Natasha could move, the gallery door chimed. Leonardo walked in, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His perfect composure was gone, replaced by something raw and desperate. Don't do this, he said without preamble. I'm not doing anything to you, Natasha replied, not turning around. I'm doing something for me. Those paintings are your mother's legacy. Her life's work. Her life's work was protecting me from people like you. Natasha finally faced him, and he flinched at the emptiness in her eyes. She succeeded, eventually. I never wanted to hurt you. Yeah, but you did. It's the moment you decided money mattered more than truth. She picked up the lighter, feeling its weight like a weapon. Tell me something, Leonardo. On all your planning, all your manipulation, did you ever consider what would happen if you actually started to care? If the daughter you were conning became real to you? His silence was answer enough. That's what makes this beautiful, Natasha continued, opening the lighter. You're about to lose $30 million, but that's not what's killing you. What's killing you is that somewhere in all the lies, you found something real. Now you're watching it die. Please. The word broke from his lips like a prayer. Let me make this right. How? By choosing me over money? By walking away from everything Victoria offers and becoming the father you should have been 24 years ago? She laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. We both know you won't do that. Men like you never do. You're wrong. Prove it. For a moment, hope flickered in her chest, despite everything. If he said yes, if he actually chose her over his empire, maybe something could be salvaged from the wreckage. Maybe the walls she had built didn't have to be permanent. Leonardo's. Phone rang, Victoria's name on the screen. He looked at it, then at Natasha, then answered the call. Where are you? Victoria's voice carried clearly in the quiet gallery. Cleaning up the mess, Leonardo replied, his eyes never leaving Natasha's face. The lawyers need you here in 20 minutes. We're finalizing the acquisition papers for the paintings. Once we have legal claim, the girl becomes irrelevant. Natasha felt something inside her chest turn to stone. Even now, even after everything, he was still playing both sides, still hoping to have everything without sacrificing anything. I'll be there, Leonardo said quietly. He ended the call and looked at her with eyes full of regret and apology and everything except the courage to actually change. Natasha, goodbye, Mr. Castellano. She flicked the lighter, and flame bloomed like a flower of destruction. No. Leonardo lunged forward, but Natasha was already touching fire to canvas. Her mother's paintings caught quickly, years of dried oils feeding the flames with hungry enthusiasm. Diana screamed, Leonardo shouted, but Natasha stood perfectly still. Watching 23 masterpieces turn to ash in memory. You're insane, Leonardo breathed, staring at the destruction. I'm free, Natasha corrected. For the first time in my life, I'm completely free. The fire spread quickly, consuming not just her mother's paintings, but everything else. Years of work, carefully curated collections, her entire professional life dissolving into smoke and flame. The sprinkler system activated, but it was too late. Everything that mattered was already gone.
Ow.
The insurance will cover the gallery, Diana said through her tears. But those paintings were never meant to be sold, Natasha finished. My mother kept them secret for a reason. She knew what would happen if people like him got their hands on them. Leonardo stared at the remains of $30 million worth of art, his face pale as winter. You've destroyed everything.
I've
Saved everything that mattered. Natasha walked to the door, stepping carefully around puddles and debris. My mother spent her life running from people who saw her as a commodity instead of a person. I won't make the same mistake. Where will you go? Somewhere you'll never find me. She paused at the threshold, looking back at the man who might have been her father in another life. And first, I have one more gift for you. She pulled out her phone, showing him the recording app that had been running since he walked in. Every word of their conversation, including Victoria's voice on the phone call, was captured in crystal clarity. Insurance fraud, conspiracy, theft by deception, Natasha said conversationally. I may not know much about law, but I know enough to recognize a crime when I record one. Leonardo's face went ashen. Can't prove anything with that. It's inadmissible in court. Maybe, but not in the press. Not in the art world where reputation is everything. Her smile was sharp as winter wind. Victoria wanted to destroy my reputation with lies. Let's see how she likes the truth. She walked out into the New York morning, leaving behind the smoldering ruins of her old life. Her phone was all ready, dialing the number for the Times arts reporter who had been trying to get an interview with her for months. Behind her, she heard Leonardo calling her name, but she didn't turn around. Some bridges were meant to burn completely. 6 months later, Natasha stood in a small gallery in Prague, watching tourists admire an exhibition of unknown European artists. The Victoria and Leonardo Castellano scandal had destroyed them both, just as she had promised. Victoria was facing charges in 3 countries, and Leonardo had lost everything in the subsequent investigations. The art world had moved on, as it always did, but Natasha had found something better than revenge. She had found peace. Miss Rivers, a young woman approached, nervous but determined. I'm an art student from the local university. I heard you. Sometimes mentor young curators. Natasha looked at the girl's eager face and saw herself 5 years ago, hungry and hopeful and so desperately naive. What's your name? Alina Novak? Tell me, Alina, why do you love art? Because it's the only truth that can't lie to you, Alina said without hesitation. Natasha smiled, remembering another conversation in another lifetime. Some truths were worth preserving, even if everything else had to burn to protect them. Then let me tell you a story about a woman who chose freedom over fortune, and why. Sometimes the most beautiful thing you can do is walk away. As they talked, Natasha fingered the thin silver chain at her throat, the only thing she had kept from her old life. Her mother's chain, passed down through generations of women who had learned the hard way that some prices were too high to pay. But sometimes, if you were very lucky, you learned that lesson before it was too late to matter. The end.